One win doesn't make a career. Not even close. It's been that way throughout the history of competition in our world. Can you name one of Napoleon's victories? But one win can elevate a career to a new height and establish a status in history beyond what it was before. Eisenhower on D-Day, Alexander the Great's conquering of Persia. To put it back in the context of sports, LeBron's championship versus the Warriors in 2016, Messi's World Cup win in 2022, Brady's 5th Super Bowl comeback against the Atlanta Falcons. Yesterday, that win against Dallas was a bigger deal than the hockey world thinks it was. Yesterday, Connor McDavid firmly established himself as one of the top 5 hockey players of all time. The Edmonton Oilers until 2007 had known nothing but winning and good vibes. When your team comes into the NHL as a franchise with a rookie Wayne Gretzky and young Mark Messier on your team, things are bound to go pretty well for you. And boy, did they ever. 5 Stanley Cups in 7 years between 84 and 90. They were the cream of the crop. You could probably name their legends off the top of your head, as most of them are now household names. On top of Gretzky and Messier, Yari Curry, Paul Coffey, Grant Fuhr, coached by the great Glenn Sather, they were the team. And they did this coming straight into the NHL from the rival league WHA. After Gretzky left, Messier won them a cup by himself. And after Messier left, the torch of the franchise was carried on, mainly by the great goaltending of Curtis Joseph and one of the best coaches of the time, Craig McTavish. The Oilers were still, after Messier left, year to year consistently a very competitive team. They were consistently over 500, even making a Cinderella run to the Stanley Cup final in 2006 when nobody thought that they would. But after 2006, the franchise seemed to almost rip apart at the seams. Only 5 days after the finals loss, Chris Pronger, one of the best defensemen in the world at the time, requested a trade from the team. Many of the other Oilers core would not re-sign, even with some offering the Oilers pay cuts so they could stay on the team and keep the chemistry that was established the previous year. The Oilers quickly earned a bad reputation among players in the league for not rewarding their players for exceeding expectations. Chris Pronger the next year went to the Anaheim Ducks and won a Stanley Cup. In 2008, they hired Steve Tambellini as their new GM. Steve had literally no NHL experience. He had been the director of player personnel during Canada's 2002 Olympic run, and he was the Canucks' director of media and public relations before he got hired. And that went about as well as you would think. From that moment on, the Edmonton Oilers became the joke of the National Hockey League. From 2007 to 2015, no team had a worse record than the Oilers during that span. They had 30 less wins during that span than the second worst team, the Florida Panthers. The franchise was nothing short of a disaster. It seemed like no matter what coach was hired, what GM was fired, what player they traded for, they just could not ice a competitive roster. And that was mainly because the Oilers were awful at drafting. Almost like it's harder picking between 5th round defensemen than it is choosing if Marty Brodeur or Ed Belfour is going to be your backup on the 2002 Olympic team. Just a thought. With their terrible teams each year, the Oilers would be constantly drafting in the top 3, often first overall, bringing even more attention and criticism to the franchise for not being able to capitalize on their incredible lottery luck. It wasn't like the players they drafted high were busts either. Well, one of them was. But it was their picks afterwards that continued to pan out bust after bust after bust after bust. The era of 2010 to 2015 for the Oilers was so bad, it is not even listed in their Wikipedia history. So when the 2015 draft came around and everyone and their mother knew who the first overall pick was going to be, the hockey world came together to hope for the same thing. The Sabres were last place in the league, had the best odds to get the first overall pick, and were an exciting franchise. With the addition of McDavid, could become a very exciting franchise. The hockey world all agreed. Just do not give the pick to Edmonton Oilers. McDavid ends up being on the worst franchise in the league as rated by everyone. Right after he gets drafted, the questions begin to be asked. Will Edmonton screw this up like they always do? How will McDavid grow with such an underwhelming supporting cast? Could McDavid be the highest profile bust in NHL history? Well, no. The Oilers soon realized they had a superstar on their hands, and also realized it was now or never to build a cup contender around their new cornerstone player. For the first few years of McDavid's career, they failed miserably. After making the playoffs in McDavid's second year in 2016, the Oilers missed the postseason in 17 and 18, even with McDavid putting up best player in the world type numbers. With that, they fired the disastrous Peter Chiarelli as their general manager and hired Ken Holland as their new GM. Now, this is normally the part where I would say the new GM turned it around and finally put a winning roster around McDavid through shrewd moves, but I don't think that's necessarily true. McDavid just elevated to his game to a level no one has seen since Mario Lemieux. 100 assists, 150 points, 60 goals. These are all incredible individual achievements by themselves. Having them all as one player is near impossible. Now, I give Ken Holland some credit, no doubt about it. Drafting Evan Bouchard, drafting Leon Draisaitl, even though he was a high pick, is still impressive. Signing Evander Kane when no one thought it was a good idea, including myself. But I still don't think the Oilers roster is all that great, even today. I think the Stars, the Panthers, the Hurricanes, Vegas, the Rangers, and maybe the Canucks all have better 1 through 4 forward lines, 1 through 3 D lines, and better goaltending than the Edmonton Oilers do. But McDavid, Draisaitl, Evan Bouchard have all elevated their games to the point where they've made it more like a basketball game where individuals are impacting play. You have McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, and Zach Hyman as a line, Draisaitl, Ryan McLeod, and Evander Kane as a line. And those two lines are eating up 45 of the 60 minutes. Really, for the Edmonton Oilers, that's all you need. You just need your other two lines to not screw it up when they're not on the ice. And you have Evan Bouchard back on the blue line, loading 30 minutes a game. In sports in general, the greatest of the greats are able to transform their situation regardless of location. The Penguins were going to fold as a franchise before Mario Lemieux arrived there. Jordan's Bulls were called their traveling drug circus before he got there. Tiger, with golf as a sport in general, was incredible, turning what people generally saw as one of the more boring sports into a must-watch event every weekend. McDavid has now entered that category. He has turned around a historic franchise, but a franchise that was in easily its darkest point, and has now elevated it all the way right back to the top of the hockey world. Now he needs to finish the deal, but even if he doesn't, what he has been able to do, the minutes he's logged, the leadership he's had, for this franchise, he is everything. And the way he's been able to turn it around elevates him into the top 5 hockey players of all time. Now, the first 4 are firmly established. Gretzky, Lemieux, Howe, and Orr. Those 4 are firmly in the top 5. So that 5th spot is debatable. Some would say Sidney Crosby. The reason I put McDavid over Crosby is because not only just eye test do I think his game is a lot more impactful and impressive individually, he's also won more awards, his scoring numbers are better. Crosby's played with great rosters throughout his career. And when he came to the Penguins, they were not good for sure, but they quickly reassembled around him. He won a Stanley Cup in only his 4th year in the league. McDavid has worked with subpar everything and still made it work. To me, Connor McDavid is a top 5 hockey player of all time, and this season has only established that as true. This is a historic run we're watching. Appreciate it while it's here. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please subscribe to the Spit Sports Show. We just reached over 250 subscribers. Please leave a comment. What do you guys think McDavid's legacy is going to be when he retires? I am small enough as to where I can read all comments, and I love doing so, so let me know. Leave a like if you enjoyed what you heard today, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Peace out.